again, it's another miracle, and a miracle is a changed consciousness. We each did not accept the fear, did not allow others to create our reality for us, as Bruce said. And we became that love that we always were and are. And so Dr. Buttar is going to do an abbreviated presentation off the cuff, no script apparently, not 1,000 slides, to get us to the lunch break, which will be coming up soon. And then we have some schedules this afternoon with speakers that we've got to stay on track with because they'll be remoting in. Nia, do you have anything to add real quick before we transition? Okay.
Not at all.
Okay.
They're like, yay!
Yay! Well,
ready?
How do you yay? Yay! Yay! Let's bring on Dr. Rashid Buttar. Advanced Medicine continues. And good Lord, this is amazing. What a miracle.
Guys, first of all, I want to thank Dr. Lipton, and I want to thank every speaker that came from wherever they came from. But Dr. Lipton, actually, you guys don't know, came all the way from New Zealand. All right? So thank you again, Bruce, for that. Now, I had 141 slides, which is actually a small presentation for me, but because we have speakers that are tuning in from overseas, I believe Dr. Rogers is this afternoon, and so are Dr. Matthews and Nicole. So that's coming in from India, and that's coming in from New Zealand. Because we have to get back on track, I have cut my presentation, actually just eliminated it. So for the people that are out there, for the live stream, we'll make it up to you guys somehow. For the rest of you, you understand what the dynamic is, and so we have to do that to adjust. It's too hard to change schedules from people that are coming in overseas. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things, but before I do that, I just want to thank a couple of people, all right? First of all, to the hotel staff, I really appreciate everything you guys are doing, and especially to the general manager and to the rest of the staff. They were in a difficult situation, and so just make sure that you let them know that you appreciate the accommodation that they made for us, all right? So that's the first thing. I'm going to have a call to action afterwards, after this weekend's over, so please stay tuned for that, but I just want to thank the staff, the hotel staff, for that. The second thing that I'd like to do is, there are a couple of other people that are very, very important that have really just risen to the occasion, and that's our audiovisual team. And these guys are just like unbelievable. They're sweating and they're perspiring, but they're doing everything to make this happen. Just imagine how much effort it took from going from one setup, having to change it yesterday, and not coming back to this setup. So they've really done an outstanding job. If you see these guys, they're very, very easy to notice because they're sweating. They're the only ones that are perspiring. So thank them for their efforts. There are a couple of other things that I wanted to mention. My clinical staff, raise your hands. My staff, Dr. Barber, Dr. Kraft, Dr. Ashton. So you can see them back there. There's Dr. Kraft right there. There's Dr. Barber. There's Nina Wall. There's Dina, one of my nursing staff. There's Heather, Sal. Raise your hand. Sal, if anybody misses Sal, he's the guy that looked like the mafia, with the sunglasses on, that was out there when the police were there. But anyway, there are a lot of other staff members that I may not have mentioned. Mackenzie, Wendy, my personal assistant, and Jaman. Who did I miss? I said Jane already, but I'll say Jane again. Jane Garcia, she's been with me 16 years or 17 years, nurse practitioner. So for people that are looking for the providers, Dr. Kraft, Dr. Barber, Dr. Ashton, and then Jane Garcia, those are the four other providers in the clinic, all right? Phenomenal people. Some of these people have been with me many, many years. Dr. Kraft has been a friend of mine for over 20 years, and we've been fortunate that he's joined the practice. But anyway, anybody, if you guys have any kind of questions, you can talk to them. But I just wanted to take a moment to thank my staff, because I can't do anything without my staff. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. So, they've taken a lot of burdens off my shoulder. Dr. Bernhoff in California, we're opening, there's other things happening with other clinics and such, because our goal is to expand and to be able to provide this service that we provide to everyone. So I wasn't planning on talking about the clinic, but this just to let you guys know, because I've had a lot of people come up and ask me questions, medical questions. So I just wanted to mention that. But the most important individuals, before I get to the most important individuals, Sal Barwani, he's my Chief Executive Officer, and he's a Chief Operational Officer actually for the clinic, and he's been an instrumental part. And Kyle, where are you at? Where's Kyle? If it wasn't for Kyle's operation, he basically put this event on for us. So for Kyle as well, you'll see him. He's a good-looking guy who just got married 3 days ago that everybody's asking, and so Kyle is the other one that I want to thank. So thank you for that, guys. But the most important people that I want to thank were you. Yesterday, I made an announcement, and I said, I cannot tell you to come, and we've been told that we're limited to 10 people, and my heart wanted to say, come, but I knew I couldn't make that commitment, ask you guys to make that commitment with flights and with, airfare and hotel accommodations to come over here and then not be able to come into the room to be able to hear the presentations. And so I was told by some of my staff, just tell them what it is, and whatever's meant to happen will happen. And this is what happened. You guys didn't listen to me with your ears. I wanted and I was hoping that you would hear from the heart, and every one of you did. And not just you, the people all over the world that have been getting tickets, and the amount of outpouring of love and prayers and intentions from every part of the world. I cannot tell you, from Russia, from Romania, from the Philippines, from South Africa, from everywhere it's coming in. So we are making a statement here. And the biggest thing was people were saying, oh my God, no masks. People are sitting together. I wish I was there. I wish I was there. So this statement that you guys are making, that you made, you didn't hear anybody saying it, because I didn't say it. I wanted to say it. If anybody saw that YouTube yesterday, and guys, my viewership has been going 6,000, 9,000, 12,000, 15,000, 18,000 2 weeks ago, live. We were going for 25,000, and guess what happened from 18,000? Down to 9,000, and then the one that I did yesterday was 3,000. And our traffic is increasing, but from our websites, but the social media platforms are throttling back. They're censoring it big time. Now it's funny that they haven't shut me down, but thousands of people that have shared our videos, their whole channels have been shut down because they don't have as big of a platform, but they're sharing stuff. People that share our videos are getting shut down. So this is a massive problem, censorship. We live in the United States of America. The Constitution gives us the First Amendment freedom of speech, which also gives us the freedom to assemble. And that is one of the most important things, which also gives us the implied right, freedom to associate. So those of you, let me see a hand of people that are the members of the International Association for a Disease-Free World, IADFW. You guys are awesome. You guys are awesome. Awesome. Now, I'm just going to tell you guys that for every single person here and every single person that's tuning in, it doesn't stop here. You got to relay this message out, okay? This is not a message about Dr. Lipton or about me or about anybody else. It's a message about you and your children, because that's what we're fighting for our offspring, for our future generations. And this is a medical conference. We've got some of the leading minds here. We're going to have Dr. Mikowitz. We're going to have Dr. Sherry Tempany. We've got Del Bigtree in the house right there. He just came off a plane. We've got some powerful people here. We've got some very powerful people here, so we need to make sure that everybody's message is getting out there, because this message is about our future. All right? Now, I thank you again. I can say that 100 times. I don't think I will not be able to adequately express with words my appreciation to you guys. It's literally like yesterday, I felt like every power outlet that had been fueling me had been pulled. I was dejected, and I could tell there was like a spiritual warfare going on. And I was getting attacked from all sorts of different sides, things that you guys, personal things that were happening. And the only awareness that I had was my significant other, who was telling me, you know what's happening right now. We're getting to that point where the universe is testing our resolve. And then this happened. So you guys have literally plugged me back into the wall, and I feel like I've got this, every one of your energies fueling me now. And I just want everybody to remember that the Creator is good and powerful. So when you think that you don't have anybody backing you up, when we think about the insurmountable forces, remember who backs us up, the biggest and the baddest. He backs us up, all right? So don't ever forget that. God is the only healer. All right, so because we're trying to make sure that we get back on schedule, I'm going to just talk about a couple of brief things to bring you guys up to speed, and I'm going to talk about the 7 toxicities and how they are important to address right now. So this is a philosophy that I've used for over almost 25 years. Next year will be 25 years. And this philosophy is to do with how pathology sets up in our bodies. And so I'm going to discuss some of this. Some of you guys at the IADFW members probably already know this, but I'm going to go through this again and talk about how it relates back to the current COVID-19 situation, with the current pandemic, as we affectionately refer to it as. So I'm having a very hard time talking because I'm used to moving, and as I move away, then you can hear that, the microphone's just like somebody used to staple my feet to the ground. All right, so let's talk a little bit first about this issue, COVID. And why is it that none of you are wearing masks? You're all close together. I don't think some of you couldn't be closer together unless you were sitting on each other's laps. So what is it that you know that the rest of the world does not seem to know?
It's fake! It's fake! It's fake!
It's rigged, okay. So let's just talk about some of the scientific facts here so that everybody gets on the same sheet of music. Whether or not you want to believe one agenda over another agenda, one rhetoric over another rhetoric, there is a coronavirus, there is a COVID-19, but the issue is that what has happened and how it has been justified is not based on science, and is not based on fact. So you heard some of the things that Dr. Lipton talked about, and one of those most important things was it is how we respond to the signal, to the environmental signal that manifests what our reality is. You guys heard that, right? So epigenetics, the key to epigenetics, it's not our genes that define us, because our genes, remember there's only 20,000 genes in our bodies, the same as in an earthworm. Interesting, right? But we have 100,000 proteins that have been actually identified, and there are probably other proteins that haven't been identified. So if a gene describes a protein or defines a protein, then how do we have 20,000 genes defining 100,000 proteins? And the answer is, of course, as Dr. Lipton already talked about, each gene has the potential of manifesting many different proteins, to define many different proteins. What is the variable that is at play? It is your environmental signal. It is the environmental input that allows the gene to express itself differently, one protein versus another protein. So if we are a manifestation of our environmental signals, do you think that the environmental signal of wear a mask, social distancing, stay at home, you're going to die if you don't do this, do you think that that's an environmental signal that is influencing our physiology? And that is absolutely the truth. It is affecting us physiologically. Let's talk about some practical things about the mask. I find it disturbing if I do not correct somebody who's wearing a mask, because I feel like as a doctor, if I don't tell somebody, I'm doing them harm. So the postmaster at the local post office where I went to 2 weeks ago had a mask on. And social distancing, and I was holding back. I was trying to restrain myself, and I just couldn't. And I was just like, guys, this is just all ludicrous. You know that, right? And everybody stops and looks, and it was like you could hear a pin drop. There was only like 6 people in the whole thing because of social distancing. There's a whole line outside. But the postmaster's sitting there looking at me, the mask on with the plastic there. And I just went into my diatribe. I don't even remember what I said, but I just said something about the mask. And when I was done, I looked like a crazy person, my hair was all messed up. I had a torn shirt on, and then the postmaster looks at me and he just very hesitatingly looks at the other postmaster and looks at me and he says, "Thank you." Literally, that's what he said. He just whispered, "Thank you." Now, that's why I feel an obligation to tell people what's happening with the mask. So first thing, just from a common sense standpoint, wearing a mask to keep this virus out is like building a split rail fence to keep mice out. It's like having a chain link fence to keep flies from coming into your field. It doesn't make any sense. The viral particles are far, far, far smaller than the smallest pore in the masks. But if we go beyond that, the actual injury that people are describing, the doctors and the nurses that are in the trenches in New York that have been describing, is an altitude type sickness. It is like a hypoxic injury, they describe it. It is not like a virus presents. Why is that? Well, there's a thing in medicine called a histotoxic hypoxic injury. And basically what that means, hypoxia is a lack of oxygen, histo meaning cells, toxic meaning toxicity. It's a cellular toxicity that is impacting the ability of our body to oxygenate. Now that's what it appears to be, and there are many reasons for that. I'm not going to get into that. But how many people have actually died with COVID versus died from COVID? And that is the question that we should be asking. Why are death certificates being changed? Why is a mandate to just put down COVID-19 as the cause of death? Why are people that are dying from suicide or motor vehicle accidents being labeled on their death certificates as if they've died from COVID-19? That is literally what's happening. A friend of mine from Atlanta, Georgia, his neighbor's son committed suicide 2 weeks ago, cause of death, COVID-19. Now the questions that we should be asking ourselves, why is this information being censored? Why is the media propagating misinformation? Those are the questions we should really be asking, not about some of the other political agendas. The question is, why are they censoring it, right? To me, it's almost like if you want to prevent something from getting out there, don't censor it, because by censoring it, you're legitimizing it right off the bat, and that's what we should be recognizing and realizing. Now let's go back to the masks for a second. We breathe oxygen. We need oxygen. We breathe out carbon dioxide. How long would an animal or a human last by just breathing carbon dioxide? Not very long. We need oxygen within a minute and a half, 2 minutes, things start to shut off. When you're wearing a mask, you are inducing a hypoxic injury, a pseudo-hypoxia. There studies have been done. In fact, I was attacked on social media because I made this comment. What are you saying, the surgeons are in hypoxia? And that's what I did. I was trained in general surgery, and I said, well, that is one of the things. And then, of course, Dr. Blaylock came out with a paper that actually talks about studies done with surgeons and nurses wearing masks. And the pseudo-hypoxic state has been validated in numerous studies. The point being that when you wear a mask, you are restricting airflow. You are also breathing in more carbon dioxide. So you're creating a hypoxic state, a pseudo-hypoxic state. But more than that, you're also creating stress because your body is now having to suck oxygen through something that's obstructing the airway. In medicine and trauma, we're taught three things. When in doubt, go back to your ABCs. Everything's about ABCs. ABC stands for airway, breathing, circulation. Now notice airway and breathing, all to do with our ability to respire, our ability to oxygenate. When you're wearing a mask, you're reducing your ability to oxygenate. You're also, because you're throwing your body into that chronic stress, because you're sucking oxygen, you have to suck oxygen through this mask, you're increasing your cortisol levels, which is your stress hormone. Cortisol going up suppresses your immune system. You get into what they call a sympathetomimetic drive. You're driving it further and faster. This is a flight-fight response. This is like having your car in park and stepping on the accelerator. That's what you're doing to your body. So you are throwing your body into an overdrive situation of stress that is now going to create a cascade, a domino effect. Because when your body is stressed, guess what happens? You need more oxygen. If a bear was chasing you, would you be breathing harder? And now you've got something covering your mouth. You think that that's going to create a problem with you to breathe? This is the reason I feel this unexplainable need to tell people, even though they're all around me wearing masks, I just feel like I have to correct them, not because I'm trying to push an agenda, I just don't want people to be hurt. So this information is important for people to understand. And there's an entire cascade of events that continues from this process forward. Wearing masks has never been established to prevent disease. There is no scientific literature for that. When a surgeon wears a mask, it's to prevent the surgeon from spitting, drooling, coughing, sneezing into that sterile surgical field. That's why we wear masks, to protect the patient, to protect the sterile field. When people in the Far East wear a mask, they're doing it so that nobody else gets sick from something that they may be carrying. So you guys have to remember that there's an agenda of this misinformation. They're telling you to wear a mask to protect yourself, and in actuality, it's hurting you. And in fact, even if you go back to the original media, Dr. Fauci said there's no justification to wear a mask. How many people have actually seen President Trump wear a mask? How many people have seen some of the leaders that have been talking wearing a mask? Well, Dr. Fauci hasn't worn a mask until recently, and then when you saw him wearing the mask, they showed like a bunch of still slides, and he was like this, fidgeting, doing everything else. My point is, again, ask the question, why? Why are we being told to wear a mask when it doesn't make any sense to have to breathe through something that's obstructing our airway? Why are we being told to be socially distanced, separation? Why? Does anybody know why? I'm sure all of you know why, but it has nothing to do with preventing disease. The issue at hand is separating us. They have always separated us. We have always been separated based upon our differences of our ethnicity, our creed, our nationality, our religions, our political agendas, our political belief systems, our color of our skin. They have divided us. It's time to forget about that division and understand what brings us together. And now, as if it's not enough, HR 6666 is talking about getting people coming into your houses and then removing family members. Think about the question. Just wait a second, guys. Don't get upset about it. Just ask the question, why? Because of because we're trying to prevent the spread of this disease. Okay, so are you telling me that you're in your house and you're not already in isolation, in social isolation? How are they going to find any better quarantine than your own house? And then they're going to come to remove family members? Guess what? If it's this virulent, if it's this resistant, if it's this pathogenic that you've shut down the entire world economy and maintained and implemented these draconian laws, don't you think that that person in your house that they're going to separate has already got it? They're with you. So it doesn't make any sense. So ask the question, why? Why are they saying this? That's the most important question, why? If you can answer that question, why, for any of these things that are happening, and you can justify it, then fine, then go along with it. But the question, if it's not answerable, if something inside you says something doesn't smell right, if your intuition, your gut feeling, your sixth sense, this is all God speaking to you. Do you understand that? Your sixth sense, that gut feeling, the gestalt that we have, that is the Creator communicating with us. It's the source of everything. That's a universal consciousness. I don't care what you call it. It is the same thing that's communicating with us, telling us, beware, something is not right. So for all of you that came here, you listened to that inner voice. Even though there was messages going out that this event had been canceled, apparently it's been canceled for over 2 weeks, and I didn't even know about this. Honestly, that's what we found out. So there has been sabotage going on. We don't know how or when, but the people that are here right now and the people that are listening to us all over the world, it is not by accident. It is by divine design. I was told by Dr. Lipton that he had a message for me from his significant other, from his better half. Can you imagine that? There's actually a better half to Bruce Lipton, right? But there was a message that came from his better half, and she wanted me to tell a story which I haven't told in a long time, and I don't really need to mention it per se, but where are the two of the most important people on this planet in my world? Where are they? Abi, Rahan? They're probably playing a video game up in the room. Oh, there they are. So those two back there are my source of motivation. Everything that I do is motivated by how it's going to impact them in their future. The older one, Abi, is the one who testified before the U.S. Congress, testified before the U.S. Congressional Subcommittee on Human Rights and Wellness on May 6, 2004, because he was vaccine injured. And when people ask me, how is Abi today at 21? Is he normal? And I said, there's nothing normal about him. He's about as normal as Superman is without his cape. He's a world-ranked martial artist. He's going to be graduating next year from University of North Carolina in Charlotte. It appears to be magna cum laude. He'll be graduating. He's going to be hopefully competing at the World Championships in poker. He's an extraordinary poker player. Using mathematical probability, he can pretty much tell you what your cards are. I don't know how he does it, but it's pretty uncanny. But my motivation has been based upon an oath that I took to the Creator. And there's always this kind of strange because my voice starts to break, and he's perfect. There's nothing wrong with him, but it's almost like post-traumatic stress disorder. It's like a memory of something that happened, and that emotion starts coming in. So I apologize. I think I've got control over it, so it's not going to be an issue. But there was a promise that I made the Creator. So when people come up to me and they give me these accolades that I'm brave or I'm this or that, guys, it has nothing to do with bravery. It has nothing to do with courage. It's to do with two things. It's to do with the promise that I made the Creator, and it's to do with the most powerful force on this planet, and that is love. Love is not an emotion. We think it's an emotion. It's not an emotion. Love is a source of all creation. And it is with that word, love, that I want us to go forward with what we're going to be doing. And understand that those that don't understand what's happening, it's okay. We have to hold a place for them in our hearts so that they can understand eventually. We have to be able to hold that space of gratitude for them and compassion for them. And as Dr. Lipton talks about all the time, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating the stuff that he said, I didn't listen to him because I was in the back putting out fires, but if he already said this, but you guys know Dr. Lipton's message is one of the most universally applicable messages of anybody out there. He has been the source of my inspiration for 17 years. He had a drastic impact on how I practice medicine. I was getting all these results. I didn't understand why. I'm listening to a bootleg copy in a car. A bootleg copy. I have paid him for the. It's actually interesting. Somebody came up and asked me to sign a copy of my book, and it's a different version. I said, "Where'd you get this from?" And she said she ordered it from Amazon. It's a bootleg copy. So I was like, I'll be happy to sign it. So flattery, Bruce, just for you, flattery is the best form of imitation. So I'm gonna imitate you here a little bit. Just remember that the evolutionary process is necessary for the next level for us to achieve, but it is based upon chaos and disruption, and it can be difficult and sometimes overwhelmingly destructive, what we may be experiencing. But all of that is part and parcel of the growth process, because for that evolutionary process to occur, growth must first be present. And what you're experiencing, that discourse, that discomfort, that agony, whatever it is, that is a component of that growth. So when you feel really, really, really in a hard place and you just, everything's falling apart, remember that is a growth opportunity. I remember one of the times hearing Dr. Lipton speak. In fact, when I first met him in person, he said something that was really, it kind of hit me hard. He said, if things are going great in your life, I'm happy for you. But beware, because you're not growing, and it always comes in cycles. And I can tell you there's been a lot of growth that I've had in the last couple of years. But right now what's happening, our planet is growing. It's evolving. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, it's painful. I understand that. But guess what, guys? How many doctors in here? How many doctors and nurses in here? All right, so fantastic that this many doctors and nurses. We did a live stream on Thursday with 166 doctors on London Reel from all over the world that were present to show solidarity. 97% of the doctors agreed with everything that I was saying. We actually had them vote by raising their hands. But I totally lost train of my thought because I was coming to doctors. I was talking about Dr. Lipton. Yes, thank you. That growth and change that's coming, it is something from, you can see this in science, it's from our first year basic understanding of how physiology works. So for the doctors in the room, what happens when a person gets an abscess? An abscess is like a boil, but it's inside, right? It gets very painful, there's pus there, you get febrile, you can become septic, you can die from this abscess. How do you treat an abscess. Antibiotics? No. You can use it, but that's not the way to treat it. Can somebody tell me, how do you treat an abscess? Drain. That's exactly right. You cut it, you lance it, you open it up, you let it drain. And what happens? The pain dissipates, right? The pus drains out, the fever drops. You start feeling better. What is happening right now is this abscess, all the misinformation that we've been dealing with for generations, the vaccine agendas, the censorship issues, the division issues, it's all coming to a head right now. This is an abscess and it's about to pop. Because we have to be appreciative of this opportunity because it's all coming to a head. Now when it pops, and it's getting ready to pop, or it's already popping maybe, it's going to drain and the fever is going to dissipate and we're going to be actually living in the world that the Creator actually meant for us to live in. Dr. Lipton talks about heaven on earth, right? The honeymoon effect. This will be heaven on earth. We have been taught from the time that we were children, from the time our parents were children, from the time our grandparents were children, of this concept of the lack of abundance. Look at a tree. Can you count the number of leaves on a tree? And then look at the number of trees on our planet. Look at the blades of grass in a field. Can you count the number of blades of grass in a field? And then how many fields are there on the planet? Or the number of grains of sand on a beach? I mean, you can't, there's no way you can count that. And now how many beaches are there? We live in a world of infinite abundance, but we have been taught not to see that abundance. There was a book that my dad gave me when I was a teenager, and in that book was a short poem. I argued with life for a penny, only to be dismayed that anything I would have asked of life would have paid. It is time for us now to ask more of life. Ask for fairness, demand fairness. Remember that no time in history has any society, government, organization been the reason for change. It's always been when the public demands it. And you are here right now as representatives of that world community, that public that is demanding that change. So I appreciate you being here. I want to tell you really quick, I don't know how much time I have because I wanted to be done by 12:30. By 15 minutes, okay. So there's 7 toxicities. 7 toxicities. The common pathologic mechanism of action behind these 7 toxicities is the same thing, oxidative stress. This is how, when you cut an apple in half, it turns brown, that's oxidative stress. All disease comes from that point. So if you can eliminate these 7 toxicities, this is my philosophy, if you can effectively remove these 7 toxicities that I'm going to just discuss in a second, very fast, Robert, chronic disease by definition cannot exist. First one, heavy metal toxicity. Second one, persistent organic pollutants. Third one, well, let's stop there for a second. Heavy metals and persistent organic pollutants, we've been inundated with that for decades. Combustion of fossil fuels, things that are in our vaccines, things that are in our foods, it's happening all the time. Now we've got glyphosate that's showing up in vaccines, and we've got glyphosate that's affecting our bodies. So the pollution of our bodies in the form of chemicals or metals, first and second toxicities. The third toxicity, I call it opportunistics. Your body needs to have a suppressed immune system in order for the opportunistics to create a problem. Opportunistics being bacteria, viruses, COVID-19, parasites, fungi, mycoplasma, spirochetes, whatever the case may be. So those are the opportunistics. They get an opportunity to set up if our immune systems are suppressed from the first toxicity, heavy metals, second toxicity, persistent organic pollutants, or other things that we're forced to do, like restrictive airway, stay in your home from a fear standpoint, that makes your system more susceptible. So far the first 3 things have been occurring, correct? The fourth toxicity, energetics. This is the electromagnetic radiations, the radio frequency electromagnetic fields, the microwave technologies. There's rollout of new technology that does not cause COVID-19. Anybody says that they're wrong, it doesn't. But it does affect your immune system. Be aware of that. The fifth toxicity, emotional psychological. Do you think that that's been affected by people being told to stay at home, to wear masks? They're scaring us. That's the fifth toxicity. And if there's going to be one that's more important than anyone else, I think that those toxicities, they're all as important as each other. But if I were put in a corner and said you have to pick one as being the most significant, it is that fifth one, that emotional psychological one. In cancer, if we cannot resolve that emotional psychological one, even though we may turn off the cancer, guess what? It's going to come back. The sixth toxicity is foods. Not what we eat, but what we do to our foods. Pasteurization, homogenization, irradiation, genetic modification. They've been doing that for decades. So they've hit us on every one of these first six toxicities. The last toxicity is spiritual. And that's where they miscalculated. You are here because you heard the spiritual call. I commend you all for that. I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you for being here.
By the way, we should get along. He was trained allopathically as a physician, and we get along just fine. I'm homeopathic, and I just want to let you know I don't have to lance the boil. I can provide to you a homeopathic remedy known as Heber sulfur calcareum. That is the frequency equivalent of love to transform physicality even without invading the body. That is an opportunity. Tell staff as well for opening this up and making it possible. It's a miracle, but all life is a miracle. And when you really believe and live that way, not a day goes by. You can't wait to get up and nap. So thank you all for being here. We're going to come back after lunch. The time will be the next speaker, 1:30. I know we're tight, y'all. Make the best of it.
They're not here.
Oh, that was from, that was like,